So one thing to understand is this is not going to air and for like another 3 or 4 months. Okay. So if you don't think about
references,
yeah, so none of that. So
we'll talk about spring.
Yeah,
it's a beautiful spring.
It is. It is about. It's about.
With my luck, it'll be a shitty spring. And they'll be like, what are you talking about? Forever.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Bourbon Pursuit podcast, the official podcast of Bourbon. But let's hit the news first. We have to get a shout out to a WWE wrestling superstar, Aiden English, who has featured us on his Instagram story. So if there's any other celebs out there that want to give us some social media love, please do it. We won't say no. So cheers, Aiden. Thanks for doing that. If you own or operate a liquor store and want to drive some more foot traffic, and maybe get a nice little spike in bourbon sales at the same exact time, we might have an opportunity for you because we're looking to partner up with a few different liquor stores outside of the country that can do shipping. Send us an email, theduo, THEDUO @bourbonpursuit.com, and let's see if we can find a great partnership and make that happen. If you've been following our podcast, you would know that today's guest isn't a newcomer. Wes Henderson began Angel's Envy with his father, and it's just gotten bigger and bigger. Last time we talked to Wes, they were getting ready to announce the Bacardi acquisition, and that's how long it's been. This is a great episode to catch up on all things that are happening at Angel's Envy, and if you want to hear all the Angel's Envy's episodes, go to bourbonpursuit.com, hit the tab that says Sort by Distillery, and find Angel's Envy. We also have one more that's going to be featuring Wes and his son Kyle, who was just back on here a few weeks ago, and that'll be coming out in maybe a few months or a month or two. And that was recorded at the Last Legend series, so stay tuned for that. As always, if you like the show, please consider supporting us on Patreon. Those few dollars a month actually go a really long way in helping continue and grow this show and make it grow bigger and better every single week. But as always, you get things in return such as patches, we've got stickers, bottle totes, barrel picks, and even more stuff to give away. Make sure you follow us on all those great social media channels, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram @Bourbon Pursuit. Subscribe to us on wherever you get your podcast. Maybe it's iTunes, maybe it's Stitcher, maybe it's another fancy app that I haven't heard about yet. Go ahead, subscribe to us there. Also, if you like the video portion, make sure you are following us on Facebook, or if you are a YouTuber, make sure you are subscribed to our YouTube channel. And with that, make sure you also go to bourbonpursuit.com, sign up for our email list, and you'll get all new episodes coming straight to your inbox at 7 a.m. every single Thursday morning. With that, enjoy this week's episode.
Always find what you love at Total Wine & More. With so many great bottles to choose from at the lowest price, it's easy to find your favorite Cabernet or a new single-barrel bourbon to try with some help from one of their friendly guides. And with every bottle comes the confidence of knowing you just found something amazing. With the lowest prices for over 30 years, find what you love and love what you find only at Total Wine & More. Curbside pickup and delivery available in most areas. Visit TotalWine.com to learn more. Spirits not sold in Virginia and North Carolina. Drink responsibly and be 21.
Play Whiskey Wednesday Round 11, the memory game. Until June 26, each week you could win one of our 12 incredible grand prizes. Select $2 at checkout. And if they match on drawing night, you'll win that bottle. Not a match? No worries. You still score a Weller 12-year. Every $5 ticket gives you 5 chances to win, including 4 weekly bonus prizes. Get your tickets now at give270.org. Charitable Gaming License ORG 0002703.
Do you ever pour yourself a bourbon, swirl it around, and then start struggling to come up with tasting notes? And perhaps you're also looking for a good Father's Day gift idea. Well, you can now solve both with a kit from Knows Your Bourbon. And unlike other nosing kits on the market, Knows Your Bourbon kits feature real ingredients for the most authentic aromas. You can smell real Tahitian vanilla bean instead of some synthetic aroma that's just made from chemicals. So head on over to knowsyourbourbon.com and enter code BP10 for 10% off your order. From their bar to yours, Chad and Sarah of the popular YouTube channel It's Bourbon Night bring you their favorite at-home old-fashioned mix with the new Elemental Elixir's Golden Hour Syrup. It's a custom-made syrup with notes of bold black tea, warm spices, and orange zest. All you need is your favorite whiskey and ice. No bitters needed. One bottle makes 16 drinks, so that's only $1 a cocktail before you add your own whiskey. They can also be enjoyed in other cocktails or spirits, mocktails, coffee, tea, and anything you can think of. It's crafted locally in Lexington, Kentucky, and you can get your bottle now at whiskeyambitions.com. Ed Bly and Rising Tide Spirits are back again with a new release of Old Stubborn Bourbon. And this release of Old Stubborn is a premium hand marriage of 10, 11, and 12-year cask strength, barely filtered pot still bourbon. It comes in at a staggering 123.8 proof, and the flavoring grain for this one, which the last one was wheated, but this time it's now rye. Rich, sweet, and bold with a long finish that's sure to be another eye-opener. You can order online at Sealbox or thebourbonconcierge.com, and you can even purchase in person at Revival Vintage Spirits, and even now with very few select stores in Kentucky. You can get it now while you can, but be sure to do it because it's not going to last long.
Welcome back to the episode of the Bourbon Pursuit Podcast, the official podcast of bourbon. Kenny and Ryan here today, going back to a previous guest that we had in the single-digit mark. It's been a while since we talked to our guest today.
That was back when we sucked.
It really was.
Shitty audio. We didn't know what the hell we were doing.
So you're trying to say you guys don't suck now? Is that right?
We
suck less.
Suck less.
Yeah,
that's something to strive for.
Yeah,
it really is. I mean, it was funny because I was listening to them and I was just like, Jesus, are those the questions that we asked him? It was like we got in front of somebody that's in the industry and really built this brand with his father, and we asked him all these stupid questions.
We definitely the fake it till you make it. We faked it.
You guys have come a long way. It's all good.
Yeah, thanks. Appreciate that.
So let's go ahead. You've heard his voice. Let's go ahead and introduce him. So today we have, I don't even know if he still goes by this, the Chief Innovation Officer at Angel's Envy, Wes Henderson. So Wes, welcome back to the show.
Good to be here, guys. Thanks for inviting me.
So do you still go by the Innovation Officer?
I just answer, to Wes or when my wife calls me or whatever. I guess that's my technical title, co-founder and Chief Innovation Officer. So if you look at my business cards, that's what's on it. But
nice.
Like everybody else around here, we'll do anything we need to do to get shit. Can I say that?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's right. We're on the...
we have explicit. Parental guidance.
Do we have a delay here?
Yeah.
Right. We just get stuff done. At the end of the day, we get stuff done.
Nice. I like it.
So you were back on episode 6, right? So that was a long time ago because this is airing somewhere around the 150-ish episode, right?
3 years ago. Probably.
Yeah, it was March of 2015. So for people that haven't gone back, let's give everybody a recap of who you are, how you got into this, the origins of Angel's Envy, so on.
It's a great story, the story keeps getting written, every day as we continue to experience this amazing thing that's happening in bourbon now. But, just in a nutshell, a lot of people that are into the bourbon industry will know my father, Lincoln Henderson, and Dad was a master distiller, Brown Foreman, for about 40 years. And at Brown Foreman, Dad created Woodford Reserve, Gentleman Jack, Jack Daniel's Single Barrel, and a bunch of other amazing products. And I worked in the industry as well, but left the industry. Dad retired from Brown Foreman. I started Angel's Envy and brought Dad out of retirement and, went to him one morning and said, Dad, do you want to do this? And he said, sure. And we started doing it, but really we had no clue how we were going to get there. We didn't really have the money set aside. We didn't know anything about how it was going to happen, but we just decided it was going to happen back then. So
you just knew you wanted the world's sexiest bourbon bottle on the shelf.
I don't even know if we knew that. We just knew that we wanted to do a project together as a family. That's really was the driving force behind it. I've got 6 boys. As my oldest 2 work for me now. So to be able to have them work with my dad and of course their grandfather was something that they were really excited to have the opportunity to do. So, it started out as a family thing. And, I really think, I know it's kind of a long-winded answer, but, my dad was an 8-year melanoma survivor. And I really think in the back of Dad's head as he got older, there might have been a thought that melanoma would come back at some point in time. And it did. So I think in the back of Dad's head, he said, okay, let's try to do one more thing here. Before I decide to move on to the next world. And that one thing wasn't necessarily creating a bourbon or creating a product. It was to be able to work. And really, it wouldn't have mattered how the product did. Mm-hmm. Whether it was a success or not a success. It was just the opportunity to work together with his son and his grandsons that Dad, really, really wanted.
Mm-hmm. So
cool.
Also talk about the origins of why going with the port finishes too, because I think, we discussed it back on episode 6, but I think it's good for the recap for the listeners that are either just now really diving into bourbon. They haven't gone back and listened to all these episodes. They just want to understand, why'd you go that route?
It started out, kind of as a challenge to Dad. And the challenge was, if we're going to do this, let's look at some things that you did in your career that you really enjoyed or thought were cool, but for whatever reason did not make it out. Did not, or let's say the idea wasn't perfected. Let's say that it wasn't the right time. And really for a lot of his things, looking back at a lot of his innovations, a lot of it it's not that it wasn't good stuff. It just wasn't at the right time. So, but we kept coming back to secondary barrel finishes as something that Dad really enjoyed doing. And Brown-Forman owned Glenmorangie for years. So Dad was familiar with that, with Glenmorangie and single malt scotches. So we thought it would be really cool to be the first American whiskey or bourbon to make that kind of our platform, secondary barrel finishes. So that's really how it all began. And then from there, we set out to do it. We looked at a lot of different possibilities. We looked at a lot of different fortified wines. We have some really good innovation recipes, and we had a really good source of port and port barrels in Portugal. So we just kind of said, let's start with that. I mean, we could have put a dartboard on the wall, with all the different finishes we like, because they're all really good, and started anywhere. But the port barrels were a little easier to source, and we just felt that was a good place to jump.
I mean, you see this a lot with a lot of companies now are jumping into the finished. I mean, you've got Bell Mead doing it, and they're doing Madeira cask finished. I mean, you guys have
Joseph
your
Magnus.
Magnus does. You guys have your rye that's done in rum barrels. I mean, are you seeing that the finishes are you think you kind of spearheaded a movement?
Yeah.
But at the same time, do you think it's a new twist on giving people that are into bourbon something grander than just the bourbon itself?
I think you're correct in all those assumptions. The first is, I really think we were the kind of the pioneer, at least the first commercially successful American whiskey to do secondary barrel finishes and make that our platform. So once people saw the commercial success of that, you started seeing these other things come out. It's also a point of differentiation and a point of, like you said earlier a minute ago, for a journey of discovery for not just people that are new to the industry, but people that are, been in the industry for a while as far as consumers. So it's new things. We're always searching for other things. I don't know if it was necessarily because we felt like there was fatigue with bourbon. I think it was just something that, okay, we've got a saying here, it's not ready till it's finished. Mm-hmm. And, we just kind of say we're taking bourbon, which is already amazing as it is, and just adding another step to it and kind of putting our stamp on it. So I believe that there is that appetite from consumers to have new things. That's part of it.
Do you think eventually it will become a category or should become a category?
I mean, it is kind of a category already, but it depends on what you mean by category. There's the legal category, and there is a specific TTB designation for products that are finished. There is, I don't really know the answer to that. I think in people's minds there's already a category. If they're looking for things that are secondarily finished. Now, how that's differentiated on a commercial level or on a TTB regulatory level, that remains to be seen. I think they've got it pretty much covered now. There's a wide net there for distilled spirit specialties is the classification. So there's a pretty wide net there. But at the end of the day, it's Kentucky straight bourbon whiskey finished in port wine barrels.
Mm-hmm. Right. It's something to be proud of too. I think it is. It carved a new path. I mean, for me, it definitely gets you out of that mindset that you're, for the bourbon purist out there, right? That they need to try something different.
Well, and it was a challenge at first, because when you're the first people to really do something, there was a little bit of pushback, and I think the pushback was mitigated because of Dad's stature in the industry, but from, we'll say bourbon purists, we'll say that. We'll just kind of call it that. I think that originally there was a little bit of blowback. Oh, that's really not bourbon. That's not, whatever. And now you don't hear that blowback anymore. It's just an accepted practice in the industry. So we had to weather a little bit of that. It wasn't anything major, but it was an education process, I think, as well. But once again, because of our history in the business, because of our family involvement, because we're very close to the bourbon connoisseur community, we have a good relationship. We're very interactive with our fans of the brand, with bourbon enthusiasts. So when you're that connected to the group, I'm not going to say you get a pass, because you don't get a pass, but what you do get is you get people that are going to take a little more time to say, okay, let's listen to what these guys have to say. And as long as what you're saying is transparent and, real, then you're in good shape.
Yeah. For me, there's just enough nuance in the bourbon that it changes up your palate and kind of sparks your interest again. Because like we drink bourbon all the time, and we look at it and we're tired of bourbon. We're going to try rum or something. But then you try these port finishes and sherry finishes and all these other things, and it kind of like wakens you up to a whole new world.
And that's great.
Yeah.
I mean, that's great. I've said it a lot that, when you come into this business, you've got rights and responsibilities. The responsibility in my mind is to preserve the history of bourbon. But because you're a guardian, or along with being a guardian of the history of bourbon, you have a little bit of artistic license. So that's the balance you have to achieve. So, that's kind of how I feel about all that. And, I think we do that. I think we've got a balance here.
There was one thing that you said there about how you connect the brand to the consumers. And we experienced it a little bit. We came in today. Today's a Tuesday. And we came in and we actually talked to people at the front desk and like, oh, we don't do a whole lot of tours today. It's a lot of connecting with bartenders and people that come around the country. And you guys really do that. The other thing that I also noticed from you is that you're very active in social media, where if anybody is talking about Angel's Envy, you respond back and say, thank you. Yeah. You say doing that. So how do you feel that, when you're doing an outreach like that to people in the community, of how it's affecting brand loyalty or anything like that?
I think it's very important, and that's probably one of the big reasons behind the success of the brand. Tuesdays at the Distillery, we call them Advocacy Day. So we reserve that day to bring in partners in the industry, be it bartenders, mixologists, distribution partners, vendors, people that are associated with the brand or bourbon. We do that every Tuesday. So those relationships are so critical, especially with the retail and bartender community. You have that connection, and look, let's say if you have a connection with a bartender, for example, and it's a real connection. It's not just some bullshit thing where, it's a real connection because of years of trust and, communication and stuff like that. You built that up. You've built a legitimate relationship there. And when somebody comes into that bar and says, well, I don't really know what I want tonight. I'm thinking about a bourbon, I think it's natural for us to gravitate towards the things we are familiar with and the things we have a connection to. Mm-hmm. And that doesn't mean that you can't try everything else behind the bar, but I think it's very comforting to know that many times, because of our relationships and because how we educate people about our brand, and it's a good brand, that they're going to recommend Angel's Envy. So, there's a tangible benefit, and I don't think it wasn't an effort where we set out to do that overtly. As the brand grew, it just became kind of a favorite in the bartender community, and we noticed that early on, and we respect that more than anything. And we know that the brand would not be where it is today without that support. So it makes total sense to continue that support. The social media aspect of it, I love interacting on social media. I think it's a lot of fun, and I get a lot of feedback, and it's feedback that I listen to.
Both positive and negative.
Yeah, it's overwhelmingly positive. Every once in a while you may get a troll out there, but I think that, 99% of everything I see out there is positive, And look, if anybody says, hey, what are your favorite, or these are my favorite bourbons, they may list 3 or 4. I got no problem coming on there. If I do agree, I'll say, I agree. Great choices, all of them, including Angel's Envy. You can't go wrong with any of them. There's nothing wrong with that, and that's real. And I think that's what people want. They want that connection. They want somebody that's not just, shoving your brand down their throat all the time.
Yeah.
And that's my approach to it. It's honest.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I think you connect more on a personal level too. It's one thing to get a response back or a retweet from a brand where you have a social media team behind it, but this is you. Yeah. This is you reaching out to these people, right? It's me and our team that personally go out and have these relationships with people. So, our society has gotten in such a way that, we have as little interaction as possible with people anymore. Mm-hmm. You get people that are one office down from each other, texting each other. Yeah. Yeah. Right. There you go. This movement towards not talking and not communicating face to face and things like that, I think it's just, if you really want to talk about the demise of society, I think that has a lot to do with it. That's probably kind of a dire prediction. Keep going.
But in my mind and in my world, at least for me, I have to have that interaction with people because that's what I enjoy. I like that. I like those friendships and relationships, and I've got them all over the world now, which makes it. And I'll tell you another thing too. And you guys are used to me by now. I have long-winded answers to all your questions.
That's perfect as a host.
It's called. And when I was in radio, we called them bathroom songs. Like Leonard Skinner, Freebird, the live version was like 8 minutes long. So that's when you put that record on if you needed to go pee or something. So yeah, I'm giving you guys could step out and I could keep talking.
Keep going.
But guys, through all that, I forgot just what I was talking about. Oh my gosh, what are we?
The demise of society with their phones,
right? All that stuff. Okay,
screen times.
That's probably all that needs to be said about that.
Yeah,
but
well, no, it is interesting because I'm in business too, and we're finding that marketing to millennials is so much different than because like our audience is pretty much similar to yours. Like our customer is 30 all the way up to 80, so it's like how do you connect the brand to that wide of a demographic?
People ask, well, what's your demographic for bourbon? And 10 or 15 years ago was pretty easily discernible. It was typically a white male, 40 years or older, as a general rule. That's not an absolute like anything else, but that was just the demographic. Well, now the demographic is all over the place. So people say, well, isn't that great that everybody loves your product, from 21 to 70? I mean, that's great, but at the same point in time, when you're doing marketing, it makes it very difficult because you've got a moving target. So it's a blessing and a curse. So what you really have to do is you've got to really be in touch with, I think, your core demographic. With any product, you have to be in very strong touch with your core, and then you work out from there. And it's very, very true what you said. You do not market to someone that's 25 to 35 the same way you market to somebody who's 50-year-old, 52, I'm 51 or older. And, you have to be able to communicate that way, if you want to reach all those demographics. So you got to be a chameleon to a certain extent. I mean, you don't change the values of the brand, but you change how you communicate the values of the brand.
Absolutely. So when we talk about the marketing aspect too, there was the last time me and you actually saw each other was at the Bourbon and Beyond Festival, quite a while ago now, but it was something where I was honestly, it was the first time that I was a part of it, and maybe you were surprised as well as how big bourbon has grown and being able to get your brand in front of all these people that, I mean, me and you were sitting there behind, like we were on the stage, right? Where there's a band in front of us, right? Did you ever think of this would be something that, just because I was in bourbon, I'd get to do this kind of cool stuff?
Not a chance.
I know, right?
I could sit here for an hour and talk about the different places that I've been able to go and people I've been able to see and that really the common, and look, forget about, let's take out the musicians, let's take out the celebrity aspect of it, but just look with people in general and experiences. Bourbon is a spirit that, that brings people together. You share a bourbon over something to celebrate. You share it over, a promotion, a birth, a death. So it's something that and bourbon's very inclusive, and so by its very nature, you're involved in situations where you've got people interacting. And guess what? That's real interaction. It's not, once again, it's not texting somebody. You can't text somebody a glass of bourbon,
But you can.
We're working on that. We have our people working on that.
It'd be the Willy Wonka of bourbon
exactly
over here,
right. It's a great business model. And if I can pull it off, I will finally be deemed a genius. Do you like my cup there, my pink cup?
Yeah.
Everybody's made fun of me because of that cup. I'm like, that's okay.
So, you said you didn't want to talk about celebrities that are part of this, but, at some point, you get the opportunity to rub shoulders with a few of them. I mean, I kind of see you being almost secret best friends with Laura Bell Buddy on Twitter every once in a while, right? So you're connecting with a lot of these people that are talking about your brand at a very not even a macro level, right? It's very high.
Laura is a really super, super amazing woman. Broadway.
She's an actress and country music singer.
And we connect. She's a Kentucky girl, and we connected. She was doing a skit for some Southern women. This little skit that they do. This little Twitter group they have, and on the skit they were drinking Angel's Envy. All these women were. So, and she was part of that. And it was really cool. So that's kind of how we met. And, and it's very nice when one of these folks that has a lot of followers on Twitter, they're very kind to tweet out something about the brand, and they don't have to do it. There are people paying
Oh yeah,
people, celebrities to tweet and things like that. But we would never do that. It's very organic, and so those friendships are very important to me, and they transcend just the and we had a presence at Laura's wedding, which was really cool. They took a drink of bourbon on the altar.
That sounds about like a Kentucky thing,
Envy.
right?
Yeah.
It sounds
in
Catholic.
California. She got married in California. Yeah, it sounds that too. And I'm Catholic, so I can appreciate that. So they did a shot of Angel's Envy to kind of seal the deal. And then we had Angel's Envy at the reception. And but next time, and I didn't do that for any reason other than I consider her a friend and she's a great person. But then in People Magazine, you've got Angel's Envy, a picture of Angel's Envy at the wedding. So that doesn't hurt.
No, definitely not.
The little hat tip, maybe you send a bottle or two as a thank you.
Doesn't hurt, so I'll take it.
Absolutely. So the last time we talked, it was also the same time that Bacardi had announced that they were assuming control of Angel's Envy. So kind of talk about how that's been going.
I think it's been going very well. It's a great relationship, a great family, great company. Like any marriage or anything where two different organizations come together, it's working out the logistics, and kind of understanding how the other one works. And the one thing that Bacardi's been great about is that they have a very sincere awareness about what we do here, and they are committed at the highest levels to allow us to be the same creative, expressive, entrepreneurial, nimble, small company that we have been from the very beginning. And that's what you need in bourbon. You need to have that autonomy. You need to have that independence, especially if you want to be creative and be innovative. So they've been very hands-off in that respect. But on the other side, they provided us the support that we need when we need it. And, they help us with, and a lot of it's back of the house stuff. It's legal, it's accounting, it's, production. Look, on the production side, they've been distilling for 150 years. So even though it hasn't been bourbon, there's a lot of knowledge there and a lot of technology and a lot of experience. So we draw on that also. So far, so good. It's been a great relationship. I have no reason to believe it won't continue to be that way. They've embraced the whole family. They're working with my sons on their career development as well. So that shows a commitment on their part for the long term. And that's what I like. I want to be sitting in a rocking chair out front of the building, 30 years from now, when I'm...
You a cigar or a pipe smoker?
When I'm 40 years old.
Too?
Yeah. No. I don't, maybe a pipe would be good. Do I need a corncob pipe and some overalls or no?
Whatever.
That stereotype's gone, I guess.
That's the Booker No outfit.
Yeah.
Booker, God bless him, man.
Yeah. I was about to say, I don't know if it would fit, right? Because you'd have all these pictures of you around here with your college shirt, and then
this distiller is way too nice for that.
That's a really good point.
Yeah.
We'll get Tim from Moonshiners to come here, and we'll get Tim to wear that outfit for us.
Yeah, it wouldn't look right if you sat outside with a rocking chair and a corncob pipe and be like, here's Wes. He started this eons ago, and he hasn't left. But
and I'll be like, come on up, little whippersnappers. Let me tell you. Let me tell you how it was back in the day when I walked, 20 miles to school in my bare feet each way. Blah 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 in the snow.
We were crushing corn with our hands to be able to put them in the mash.
If it works in the story, why not?
Yeah, people will believe. So the other thing is, the distillery is now completed. It's operational. It's functional. Because at that time you guys were still building when we had interviewed you. Was the Bacardi portion, was it a big help giving an influx of capital to help build this? Because this was a series of setbacks. It had to have been over budget, because I don't know of a construction, even if it's residential, that is ever under budget. Everything's over budget, right? So did Bacardi have a good role in that?
Yeah. And the brands evolve. So when the brand evolves, your needs evolve, and from the production side as well as the other infrastructure. So it was kind of a natural progression, but, we would have, when we did the acquisition, we didn't have any debt back then. We were debt free, but we were going to take on debt to build the distillery. So, once the acquisition happened, we had resources other than what we had before. And Bacardi was very keen on making this, one of the crown jewels of the bourbon industry. So they committed additional resources, and we just upped the ante here. We we had a great partner, and they encouraged us to make it the best we possibly could. So we spent a little more money than we planned.
So why go? I mean, if you don't have any debt, why go into debt to build a distillery, right? Because we've talked to Trey from Jefferson's before, and he says, I make more money by sourcing my bourbon and then doing it instead of actually producing my own, right? So what was the idea of even thinking that you even go this route?
Well, that's a fine business model until you can't source it.
True. Your supply turns out.
Yeah, and that's a real issue in the industry now, is that there is precious little juice out there, and almost to where you're seeing people do blends and stuff, which is fine. I think it's cool. But you have to be able to control your own destiny. And the only way you can control your own destiny is to have your own plant. So, going into debt and financing something for the long term with such a tremendous upside is really not a difficult decision to make. And we were talking, as a relatively young brand, this is a $27 million facility here. Right now, we would, at our volume now, we wouldn't have had enough resources to put all that cash into it. This is not just the distilling business. This is just business in general. So that cash is better deployed growing the brand.
Yeah,
than putting
the
cash.
Day-to-day.
Right. I mean, the business is exploding. Bourbon's exploding. Take advantage of the optimum time of growth. Spend that money on developing the brand, and then so you're paying a little interest on a loan. And once the business explodes, then you pay that sucker off, and you're in clover, man.
I mean, is there this facility is actually a lot bigger than I thought when you look at the outside of it, right? Yeah. It actually goes back very deep. I think I counted like 5 fermentation tanks. It's a lot bigger than I anticipated, right? I kind of thought when I came in here, it's going to be like a
little micro distillery.
Well, yeah, that are like Evan Williams Bourbon Experience. Like we create 1 barrel a day.
Well, guess what? That's what it would have been.
Yeah.
8, 9, 10 years ago. And the scope changed significantly. I mean, you look at the buildings we looked at. I'll give you a good example. Across the street from here, you've got the Slugger Field. And in Slugger Field, you've got Against the Grain Brewery. Mm-hmm. And the first owners of the brewery there went out of business. They closed it down before Against the Grain came in. I was in there looking at that equipment because I knew, I had fermenters there. I had a lot of other equipment. I could pop a still in there, and we could do a little craft distillery right there in that building. Mm-hmm. And that's not a very big building.
No, it's not.
Then we looked at other stuff. And, then when we finally made the decision that we wanted to be downtown, and that evolved as well. We looked at the old Taylor property. Looked at it hard. I fell in love with that property. I thought
Everybody
it was so sexy.
Yeah.
But it's a money pit. And the other thing I was thinking about, so we knew that Woodford had 150,000 visitors, for example. So we knew, and plus it's out in the middle of nowhere, right?
Right.
So we knew that
Millville's a big town.
At least, right, Millville. Right. Good old Millville. So we knew that 150,000 people come to see Woodford. So our guess was that if they're going to come see Woodford, they probably come and see us. So that's 150,000 people. But being downtown Louisville on Main Street, that changes that the exponentially. So, and then I started thinking about the history of bourbon and how the history of urban bourbon kind of got jacked. That's a phrase I like to use. Mm-hmm. And taken out to the rural areas, because there was so much going on in downtown in the history of bourbon, but it just went away. So I thought it would be really cool to go back to the urban bourbon roots. So then it all kind of came together at that point in time. So we decided, we're going to go downtown. The issue there was where we were going to find a place downtown. This spot on Main Street is the only place on Main Street in Louisville you could have done what we did.
Right.
Because of the egress, we've got places we can bring trucks in. We've got, you can't put a distillery, down in Main Street, like around 3rd and Main, where you've got these teeny buildings, with small alleys. You can't bring semi-trucks and things like that in there. So this was the perfect spot to do what we did.
And so you talked about tremendous upside. And what kind of risks did you think were going to be involved with making the gamble too? Because, I mean, don't get me wrong, like I would assume that the amount of time and the amount of money that you're paying in property and real estate taxes here in downtown Louisville doesn't compare to Millville, right?
Right.
So,
well, I mean, the city has always been great with incentives. The state's been good with incentives also. I think that you have to weigh the overall, we needed a facility of this size to achieve the volume that we knew our consumers would want. Mm-hmm. We knew how we wanted to grow the brand. So once you start to do that, once you say, okay, this is what we can be, you just work back from that to figure out what you need to build to get there. And then you make a decision, okay, is it worth that investment or not? And we decided overwhelmingly that once we knew where we could get, that the money it would take us to get there was worth spending.
Right. So 2 more questions for you. So one,
that's it. 2 more. That's it.
Well, we can keep going.
I'm the king of the long-winded answer, aren't I?
Well, then good. Then we're going to keep going.
Then we have 1 question left.
So the we talked about acquisitions of Bacardi taking over Angel's Envy, High West by Constellation. So and you weren't a small brand back then either, right? Like you were pretty substantial, but it's helped grown. And do you kind of see the future of these big behemoth companies acquiring more and more and more of brands that were about your size at the time?
If you're anything like me, then you can't get enough about bourbon. And that's why I'm a subscriber to Bourbon Plus magazine. Bourbon Plus is a quarterly publication that tells the stories from the heart of bourbon, the farmers who grow the grain, the distillers who labor over the process, and the people like you and me who raise their glasses to celebrate it all. Subscribe to Bourbon Plus magazine today at bourbonplus.com, that's PLUS.com, and use code PURSUIT at checkout for $5 off your subscription. Shopify's already taken the cash register online, helping millions sell billions around the world. But did you know that Shopify can do the same thing at your retail store? Give your point-of-sale system a serious upgrade with Shopify. Shopify's point of sale is your command center for your retail store. From accepting payments to managing inventory, Shopify has everything you need to sell in person. And with Shopify, you get a powerhouse selling partner that effortlessly unites your in-person and online sales into one source of truth. Track every sale across your business in one place and know exactly what's in stock. Connect with customers in-line and online. Shopify helps you drive store traffic with plug-and-play tools built for marketing campaigns, from TikTok to Instagram and beyond. And get hardware that fits your business. Take payments by smartphone. Transform your tablet into a point-of-sale system or use Shopify's point-of-sale Go mobile device for a battle-tested solution. Plus, Shopify's award-winning 24/7 help is there to support your success every step of the way. Do retail right with Shopify. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/bourbon, all lowercase, and go to shopify.com/bourbon to take your retail business to the next level today. Shopify.com/bourbon.
We talked about acquisitions of Bacardi taking over Angel's Envy, High West by Constellation. So and you weren't a small brand back then either, right? Like you were pretty substantial, but it's helped grown. And do you kind of see the future of these big behemoth companies acquiring more and more and more of brands that were about your size at the time, or a lot of craft or micro or stuff like that?
Everybody wants to do that. You have to draw a lot of parallels from the craft beer movement, how that's panned out. And I'd say we're about 10 years behind the craft movement. So when you look at that, the parallels there, I think there will be companies looking for some, but there's not a lot of them out there. When you look at the commercial success of these brands, we were, our size was sufficient enough to where we were an attractive acquisition. If you look at it, and so was High West, but when you look at volume of some of these craft guys, I don't know where you go to get the next kind of volume leaders. I mean, can you think of, okay,
well, even
Smooth Ambler
Allo is really small and they got purchased,
That was an outlier.
Yeah.
I think that was Stoli just wanting to get into the business. And, that brand was kind of an anomaly, but you're also dealing with, it was a source product. So, but, Stoli's going to put a significant investment into that brand. So, that's great. So where we're going from here, I'm really not sure. All of your, let's say the bigs, let's call them the bigs, your big producers, I think they realize that they're really good at running brands and taking brands at higher volume. By nature, big companies are not the best innovators in the world, and they're not good at creating new brands. So they've looked to the small entrepreneurs and the craft guys to do that, and then they can take them to the next level. The challenge is when you take them to the next level, how do you keep from screwing them up? you take an entrepreneurial style of doing things, and you have a certain mindset, a certain, turning a major company is like trying to steer an aircraft carrier. Okay.
Right.
You don't turn it on a dime. I think we're more like a PT boat. We're maybe a bass boat. I don't know what it is.
Bass tractor.
But we're fast, So the challenge in one of these acquisitions is to find a brand that has some footing that you can grow. But the big challenge is assimilating that into the bigger company. Mm-hmm. And another good example of that is Makers. I talk to Bill Samuels all the time about this, about the acquisition of Makers and how he dealt with that, and how they, how the larger companies navigated that. And fortunately for us, it's worked out very well. But I know of at least one brand that it didn't work well. I'm not going to name it, but that's where we'll see how High West works out. I love David Perkins. I hope David stays involved in that brand, because he's really the lifeblood of the brand. Hopefully they won't screw that up, but we'll see.
And then there's one common theme between you and High West, Kentucky Owl, is that you all start as NDPs, right? You have a volume of sourcing, and you weren't necessarily distilling and putting out your own product. Mm-hmm. And you don't see a whole lot of that craft movement of people that are putting out their own product are the ones actually getting acquired right now. Do you think it's because it is a quick grab of these big companies that say, like, okay, these people put out a good quality product at a great price point, and we can help grow that to a bigger significant than what it is now, versus, all right, well, we got to take this product that's aged 6 months, 2 years, whatever it is, and figure out what to do with it.
Yeah, I think that's a fair statement. There's some great creative stuff going on with your small craft guys. I think that one of the issues with some of those products is that they're great products, but and it's all financial. There's a push them to market, if you're a guy, an entrepreneur that spent $3 or $4 million building a distillery, and you don't, and that's your only thing, and to have to sit on that for 4 to 6 years, if you're doing an aged product, that's a difficult proposition. So you're going to make other things. You're going to make gins. You're going to make vodkas, other things, or you may be inclined to release whiskeys before they're really the best they can be. And I don't necessarily know if that's good for the industry or not. And like I said, a lot of these guys, the stuff that they release now that may not be so good right now ends up being fantastic, 2 or 3 or 4 years later. So,
but it's hard because they put it on the shelf and at a high price point, and and then you kind of get ingrained in your mind that that's not a good product.
Yeah, that's where it's tough. When I see a product on any product on the market, it doesn't have to be a spirit that has this
that first impression,
super premium price point, and then you have to look at differentiation. So why would I spend twice as much on that product if I know the product is, let's say age is the most important, and it's not. But why would I buy that product that's been aged, 6 months as opposed to this one that's been aged 6 years? And there's got to be a compelling reason for somebody to, and there may be a compelling reason. I mean, the story may be so compelling. There's something about the bottle may be have gold bars in it, whatever. You know what I'm saying? There may be some reason.
I like gold bars.
Yeah, it may be a heavy bottle. But there has to be something there. And craft guys are good at telling those stories. They're good at, they're working from the heart and people that resonates with people. So, and being an NDP or being someone that's utilized source product, that's a little more difficult, I believe. People think that, especially if you're doing the blending yourself, the art is in the blending, and, we had the experience in the industry. We were able to source product at the very beginning to our specifications, but we were able to take it, age it the way we wanted to age it, blend it, bottle it, do everything, finish it ourselves. And that's something that a lot of these smaller craft guys don't have the experience.
Not an opportunity now for them?
I think there is opportunity. I think the window is not as large as it was before. And I do believe, at some point in time, shelf space will be a consideration. There are a lot of new brands out there, and they're all fighting for shelf space. And if you're a really small guy and distributor focus, with all these brands, getting a distributor to focus on your brand is more increasingly difficult.
Yeah.
So, there may be a shakeout.
Do you think an NDP now could do what you all did 5-6 years ago?
Probably not.
Yeah.
Well, not with Kentucky bourbon whiskey right now.
Yeah.
Because the market is so tight. Distillers for 100 years have been selling product to each other, selling bourbon back and forth. Now everybody's they've grabbed their stuff and they're holding on to it real tight because they're able to sell it themselves. So now there's other whiskey out there on the open market. Hell, if you wanted to have a Canadian whiskey right now, good luck.
But do you think consumers wouldn't, embrace it, I guess, now versus, 5-6 years ago?
I think more so now because it's more understood.
Yeah.
As long as you just not slapping somebody else's juice in it and just like that and putting a different name on it. It's a more widely accepted, just like the notion of finishing is more accepted than it was. And it's accepted from the people who are transparent about what they're doing.
Absolutely.
If you're an NDP or if you're doing finishing or if you're doing things, you've got to be, as long as you're honest and open with your consumers about what you're doing and how you're doing it, then you're okay. It's when you get some of the shifty stuff going on behind the scenes where people aren't really quite leading you in the right direction, that's bad for all of us.
Mm-hmm. So you had mentioned that a lot of these craft movements, they need to create something to get it out the door. However, you guys started distilling, but you didn't make Angel's Envy gin, Angel's Envy vodka. You don't have a bottle of Angel's Envy moonshine. At least I didn't see down there, maybe. Well, it's right there, but it's not necessarily downstairs in the gift shop, right?
No,
so why not? I mean, because don't be wrong, like you go to Makers and you've got the White Dog there. You did the same thing at Buffalo Trace. So what was the idea of not going that route as well?
And a lot of it has to do with positioning and branding. The positioning of the brand. I would never take new make and put it in an Angel's Envy bottle, because I don't think that's super premium. And Angel's Envy is super premium. Now, I like being able to sell, if I were able to sell White Dog, because I think it's a good.
It's a hell of a lot less money involved too.
Forget about that. Let's set that aside. I think it's really cool to be able to show somebody, okay, this is how it starts and this is how it ends. So, to be able to do that. And look, when I created this company, it was called Louisville Distilling Company. Angel's Envy is the first brand from Louisville Distilling Company. So there are other things we can do here. We can do distillery only releases. Special releases that, we can test things here. It may not go in an Angel's Envy bottle. It may go in a Louisville Distilling Company bottle, But, we don't have a need to.
Was that part of the sale, the Louisville Distilling to Bacardi, or is that your own thing?
The whole thing.
The whole thing.
It's
Gotcha.
the whole thing. Louisville Distilling Company is the umbrella company, and then Angel's Envy is the first brand from Louisville Distilling Company. So, in the gift shop, look, if you go down and see the gift shop, it is the same super premium feel that we have with the brand.
Oh yeah,
So
we walked in, I was like blown away.
We're not selling souvenir spoons down there, and all that stuff. We're selling things that are people want, and we've got the average spend there is really, you'd be surprised, is really really high per person, and it's not, we're not ripping people's heads off on pricing. So. We may add a few more things to it, but anything we add is going to be on brand.
Mm-hmm. It was funny because we did walk in and we were like, "This is easily the cleanest distillery we've ever walked through."
I was like, most places are dumb.
Other people say that, and I think that we have one of the nicest distilleries on the Bourbon Trail. I'm fans of all of them, so don't get me wrong.
You did have the advantage of being able to remodel and start from scratch, so it's
Yeah, look, and the design was very progressive, yet it honored the history of the building, which was built in 1902.
It's definitely got like an urban, like you said, urban bourbon feel versus more rural kind of rustic feel. So it's definitely something different and awesome.
We embrace that.
Yeah,
that's the route we decided to go.
So the last thing that we'll kind of roll into here is that you had mentioned that blending is tough, and we've done it before on the show. We've had the ability to try to. I've talked to a few other bloggers, and they've tried to create their own blends of stuff. I know of another person out of Cincinnati that creates his own blends, and it's not easy to do. So talk about the process of the blending of Angel's Envy to get it to the consistent state of where it is, and whether it's maybe you just figured out the mathematical formula to say it's from this warehouse, sourced from this place and this age, and we dump it, and then hooray, it all just happens to work.
Well, I can tell you that nobody in the industry has a mathematical formula to do that. It's just not possible. There are too many ranges of taste profiles for barrels. I mean, but what you do have to be is you have to be very in tune with your taste profile. You have to be able to evaluate it as you go along. And if you're doing a blend, let's say you're doing a blend, a 500-gallon blend of, let's say you've got your 10 barrels, you're getting ready to do. those 10 barrels that you pick have to eventually, when you put them together, have to match your taste profile. So you may have to go 5 barrels into that blend and taste it and say, okay, here we are. This is where we are now. This is where we want to be. But guess what? The challenge is to find barrels that are going to get you where you need to be. So there's an artistry to it. I think it's like making barrels, like a cooper. You've seen coopers before. How they've got to get the staves. By the end of they're picking different sizes of staves to get them all together to where it works. Very similar type of philosophy. So that's. In Scotland and other places, the blender is definitely the most recognizable person. In the United States, for some reason, the master distiller has been the one. But also with bourbon, usually the master distiller can also be doing the blending as well. But here, we've got more than one person doing the distilling. My son Andrew's a distiller. Andrew's worked in processing and so on and so forth as well. Kyle's the production manager, so he oversees all that. So we've got more than one person who is doing those things, who's doing blending. We have a team that does sensory now as well. We've taught other people where it was just the family originally, to do sensory on the samples. We have a team we've trained to do that. So as you get bigger, you have to kind of make some adjustments in how you do things. But the same principles of how we do things remain the same.
And how has the business grown since the opening of the new distillery? New head count, everything.
Yeah,
like
I mean, I'd say we probably have a little over 100 employees nationwide now.
Wow.
40 or 50 or so here. And we have a marketing office in Chicago. We have regional managers around the country. We have Whiskey Guardians around the country. So we've grown.
You've said Whiskey Guardians a few times. I think you need to explain what that is.
Yeah, I will. Whiskey Guardians, I hate to use the word brand ambassador, but that's the easiest way to kind of understand what they do, although it's not even doesn't do them justice. Whiskey Guardians are folks that we hire in markets around the country that work for us part-time. They also they're influencers in some of the major bars in the country. That's what we want. We want them still involved in the bartender community while working with us at the same time. So, we have them in major markets all around the country. They're fantastic people. They do a lot of the in-market activity. They'll do tastings. They'll do staff trainings. They'll do placements. They'll do, try to get our whiskey, our bourbon on cocktail menus. So they're a huge part of what we do here. And another one of the big reasons the brand has been successful is because of that. They're evangelists of the brand, and they're so well connected.
Yeah, you always need those people.
Yeah.
And so the last question we'll round this out with is, as an innovation officer, we had mentioned, we dug into marketing a little bit, but how are you getting your brand into the hands of more consumers every single day? And what's kind of like that next phase that you kind of see all of this either changing or developing in the next few years too?
I'm fond of saying that this business is like a rocket ship. Some days you're just strapped to it and holding on for dear life, and other days you're actually navigating,
making traction,
actually, flying the ship yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're part of an acquisition of a larger company, there's a lot of integration that you do, and that took us about a year really to get. So I think during the last couple of years, we've been growing the brand. We've been getting used to the way things are arranged now, and that can be a distraction sometimes from what from some of your forward progress. So now all that's behind us. So we're back to not only continuing building Angels Envy as a brand, but to looking more forward and to other things and other innovations we want to do. So I want to continue doing those things. My big thing is I always want Angels Envy to be part of the discussion. And when you're not part of the discussion is when your brand starts to become less relevant. I'm not going to say it ever becomes irrelevant, but when people are talking about innovative, people are talking about, hey, that's something new and cool. Look what Angels Envy is doing. That was when I created this company. That was kind of my vision, and that was a vision Dad had. And now we got this beautiful distillery where it's a playground. We can do whatever the hell we want here. If we some crazy ass idea we come up with and we want to go distill, we can do it, which is amazing. It's a great ability. So we just use that canvas. We have that blank canvas. So we'll continue to innovate. We'll continue to make as much Angels Envy as we can, and win over as many consumers as we can.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
I remember the last time we were here, and you had a bottle in front of you, and you were like, we said, what is that? And you're like, I can't tell you.
Yeah, there's a bunch of those. See all these labels? I turn the labels backwards.
Yeah.
It's like, you watch a television show and there's a bar scene and all the labels are turned backwards,
Yeah.
Except for Angel's Envy. That's
that's
of
okay.
course. Actually, I should have put it right here.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, but I do remember that you guys at one time were talking about sherry cask finishes at one time too, right? But I haven't seen that hit the market yet either, right? So it's just one of the other things that
Percolating
still 2
They had to
years
get the-
later.
they-
It's actually not
distillery
percolating.
built
It's been percolated. We're just trying to figure out when we're gonna
It's fermenting.
do something with it.
Good deal.
But you didn't hear it from me.
Sure. Why not?
I didn't say it.
Who's this Wes character?
Right, exactly. Right.
So Wes, I want to say
Yeah,
thank you
thanks.
again
Thank you,
for
guys.
coming on the show. So before we end it, I want you to give a plug of how people can find you on Twitter. Where can they find the distillery? All that good stuff.
Where can you find me? I'd prefer that to be found on a raft in my pool.
That's the best way.
And I do a lot
That's
of social
ideal.
media from that if I can get away with it, if I can get away from work. I'm on Twitter, KY Bourbon Maker, as well as Instagram. That's the same thing. And, reach out. I'll answer any questions you have, and we'll come and see the distillery. That's always a lot of fun. You have to book online. Our tours are usually sold out for 2 or 3 weeks ahead of time, and a lot of times you'll see me here. So come down and see me here. That's another way to connect.
Just go and say, I listen to Wes on Bourbon Pursuit. I need to shake the man's hand.
Yeah.
There you go. Tell me that you heard this on Bourbon Pursuit, and we'll have to give them a little something special. I don't know what it is, but like those ads on the radio. But
Yeah.
But look, guys, I think it's fantastic what you all have done, and to have people that interested in what we do is a blessing.
Yeah.
And I love it that you all have a passion that you're growing and continuing to nurture, which is what I did with this business. So I'm a big fan of that type of stuff. So
Awesome.
Now we just need Bacardi to become the Bacardi
Yeah.
Bacardi Bourbon Pursuit, right?
There you go. Look, that you never know, man. You never know. Then we'll talk about Angel's Envy all the time.
Yeah, exactly. Every week.
I like your shirt. I'd be more than happy to wear one.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It wouldn't just be a shirt. We'd probably have it tattooed on your forehead. We'd probably,
Oh, yeah.
we would be a very prominently displayed branding.
I like it.
Yeah. But Wes, I'm going to say thank you again. Make sure you follow Wes at Kentucky Bourbon Maker and all those great social media channels. Follow us as well at Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You can also make sure you give us reviews on iTunes and subscribe on iTunes. Those reviews really help grow the show. It helps spread the word. People, they always want to subscribe to something where they see a lot of good reviews. So really the reviews do help. So please do that. And if you do like the show, support us on Patreon, patreon.com/Bourbon Pursuit.
And just take some cash. If you really like the guys, put a couple $100 in an envelope and send it to the guys.
Oh, yeah.
We like that too.
That's always that.
We like cash.
Yeah.
If, a friend of mine used to say, well, do you really like me? And they're like, how much do you like me?
Yeah, exactly.
Show me how much you like me.
Right.
Great guys. Thank you.
No, appreciate it. Man, this place is beautiful and big upgrade from when we first recorded. So it's an inspiring story, and I'm excited to see it grow. So appreciate the time. And if you have any show suggestions, comments, feedback, please let us know. We love hearing from you all and getting ideas. And we'll see you next time.